Um, Donna and Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to No Kid Hungry for that great information. We really appreciate it. Um, so this next portion of our training, we're going to dive into professional standards and wellness. So the regulations at 7 CFR 210.30 and 235.11G establish professional standards for employees who manage and operate the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program. The regulations establish minimum hiring standards for new state and local directors of school nutrition programs, and then also the annual continuing education or training requirements for state directors and all local school nutrition personnel. The regulations also establish hiring and training standards for state directors of distributing agencies. Directors hired before July 1st of 2015 are exempt from the hiring standards, and they're grandfathered in based on their existing positions. So the training and hiring professional standards have a simple goal. They help to ensure the success of the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program. The standards assist the state agencies and school food authorities in recruiting, hiring, training, and retaining qualified school nutrition staff. They enhance the image of school nutrition professionals and their influence in the community. And then they also build skills and empower staff to lead efficiently operate school nutrition programs. So question number 6 in questions and answers for child nutrition program operations in school year 21-22, in question and answer number 2 asks, if schools elect the waiver, allowing them to operate SSO during the school year, do the professional standards training requirements still apply? So the professional standards training required in federal regulations are not applicable to SFAs that operate the SSO during this school year 21-22. School year 21-22, set number 2, page number 5, however, encourages SFAs to complete in-person or online training. So this doesn't mean, it's not important to train. It's not important to continue your nutrition education. FNS encourages state agencies as well to also provide a minimum of 18 hours of continuing education and training to SFAs that operate SSOs. So that's why we've continued to offer these monthly trainings. And this is under regulations at 7 CFR 235. But please note that the professional standards hiring requirements are still applicable during SSO. So throughout the rest of this presentation, we will discuss the 2 categories of requirements for professional standards in child nutrition programs. First, they include the minimum hiring requirements, and then second, they include the continuing education requirements. So let's talk about hiring requirements first. So state agency directors of school nutrition programs and state agency directors of distributing agencies in their positions prior to July 1st of 2015, as we stated before, as well as SFA directors of the school nutrition programs in their positions prior to July 1st of 2015. They may all continue to serve in their existing positions without having to meet the hiring standards. However, directors hired on or after July 1st of 2015 must meet the hiring standards included in the regulations. Directors hired on or after April 30th of 2019 may use the flexibilities provided by the hiring flexibility under professional standards rule. So depending on a candidate's qualifications, the hiring standards for CNP directors require a degree or equivalent educational experience with an academic major or concentration in food and nutrition, food service management, dietetics, family and consumer sciences, nutrition education, culinary arts, business, or a related field. And a related field refers to other college majors that would provide an applicant specific knowledge and skills that are relevant for a school nutrition program director. So possible majors would include, but aren't limited to, food science, community nutrition and marketing, hospitality management, things of those nature. Note that colleges and universities sometimes use different names for similar majors. So for example, a major may be called food service management at one university and then hospitality management at another university. The purpose of the hiring standards, for the purpose of hiring standards, the term equivalent educational experience refers to college credits completed by an individual who does not possess a bachelor's or an associate's degree. So, for example, a new director of a school nutrition program in an LEA with an enrollment of 2,499 students or fewer could have at least 60 college credits, which is generally the number of credits required by a college or university to have an associate's degree. In another example, a new director in an LEA with an enrollment of 10,000 students or more could have at least 120 credits, college credits, which is generally the number of credits required for a bachelor's degree. An SFA is responsible to keep the documents, such as college records, that show that the equivalent educational experience supports the hiring decision. And the state agency has the flexibility to determine if other substantial education, such as an extensive training program in school nutrition topics from a professional association with credentialing and certification programs, would qualify as equivalent educational experience. For LEAs with an enrollment of 2,499 or fewer students, the final rule requires relevant food service experience rather than school nutrition program experience. So typically the phrase relevant food service experience refers to work in the food service industry, which can include but isn't limited to places like hospitals, healthcare facilities, nursing homes, restaurants, cafeterias, free meal centers, and university dining services. Examples of skills employees would obtain in the food service industry include food handling and preparation, food ordering, nutrition education, financial management, and customer service. So who is the C&P director? We often find that SFAs are not quite sure who is considered to be their child nutrition program director. But generally speaking, the individual who plans, administers, implements, monitors, and evaluates all district-wide aspects of the school nutrition program would be considered the C&P director. If SFA responsibilities are divided into several positions, only the person hired to perform the majority of the nutrition duties must meet the hiring standards. So next, let's talk about training requirements. Professional standards training requirements established annual training requirements for new state directors, for school nutrition, existing state directors, new and existing SFA directors, and then SFA managers and staff. And new directors are considered those that were hired on or after July 1st of 2015. Directors are required to complete 12 hours of training per year. Managers are required to complete 10 hours. Full-time staff are required to complete 6. And employees who work less than 20 hours per week are required to complete 4 hours of training each year. And then if you have a mid-year hire, somebody who comes on, January 1st or later, they're required to complete 1/2 of the training requirements for their job type. So if you have a director that comes on January 1st or after, they would need 6 hours, managers would need 5, full-time staff would need 3, and then part-time staff would need 2 hours of training. So the annual requirements apply to the 12 months between July 1st and June 30th of the next year. And that is how USDA defines the school year. Civil rights training must be completed annually for all child nutrition program staff. That is a must. It has to be done annually. And then when offer versus serve is utilized within an SFA or at a school specifically, offer versus serve training is also required annually. Food safety is a critical aspect of the food service operation that affects all students. 8 hours of food safety training every 5 years is required for program directors. However, having additional staff trained in food safety is always a good idea, and it's encouraged. The USDA FNS Office of Food Safety offers food safety training and other resources relating to safe food handling. And that's found on FNS website. It's www.fns.usda.gov. or slash OFS slash food safety. And then ServSafe and the Institute of Child Nutrition's Food Safety in Schools, those are also popular ways that food service directors receive and maintain this required training. Allowable training should focus on the day-to-day management and operation of the school nutrition programs. So only training that fosters proper administration and operation of the school nutrition programs count toward the training standards. As a guide when planning training, use the list of key training areas and topics. And I'm going to show that here in just a minute. Back to school training on general topics such as security procedures and building operations do not count toward the annual training standards. So that's important. Oftentimes we see that building safety or security procedures are counted in annual training hours for staff, and those back to school trainings are not eligible to count toward professional standards. Training must be job specific, and it's intended to help employees perform their duties well. Training needs are best assessed by an employee in consultation with their manager, the SFA director, or even the state agency. So employees should always seek guidance from a supervisor before taking a specific training course to meet the professional standards requirements. Again, back to school trainings that are not CMP specific do not count toward the annual training hours required of CMP staff. The school nutrition program director determines the training standards for the employees based on their job duties in the school nutrition program, and this is regardless of the funds used to support a specific position. So what that means is if a person is paid with non-federal funds, they're paid through the school's funding source, even if they're not paid with child nutrition funds, if their job duties are related to the school nutrition program, they must have these hours completed. The definitions and regulation for a school nutrition program director, manager, and staff don't specify that those positions must be fully or partially supported by school food service funds. Generally, employee training is also an allowable use of an SFA's school food service funds. However, food service funds or state administrative expense funds must not be used to pay for the cost of college credits incurred by an individual to meet the hiring standards. State agencies and SFAs are encouraged to access the free or low-cost training resources that are found at professionalstandards.fns.usda.gov. The professional standards vary by 3 job categories. We have directors, managers, and staff. Program staff would generally include individuals like cooks, cashiers, and others who are involved in the preparation and service of school meals. Individuals who are involved in other program operations, such as eligibility determinations and meal counting and claiming, and support staff who may have an impact on the safety of school meals. However, a person who provides support to, but is not specifically involved in the operation of the school nutrition program, such as the cleaning custodian, is not required to meet the training standards, even if they are paid using nonprofit school food service account funds. The program director or manager must examine the job duties of program staff to determine what job-specific training they need to perform their jobs effectively and in compliance with program regulations. And you can refer to USDA's Guide to Professional Standards for School Nutrition Programs for examples of different job categories and how to meet training needs by categories. So people like office staff members who process free and reduced price meal applications or provide other support for the school nutrition program for a short period of time during the school year are not required to meet the annual training standards. However, these individuals should receive adequate training specific to the tasks they will perform. This situation is different from office staff working on program activities 20 hours or more per week throughout the school year. In that situation, staff must complete 6 hours of annual training. Staff working less than 20 hours per week must complete 4 hours of annual training. And I know a lot of you have staff with the title of substitute or temp staff or acting staff. And if you have questions about how the training standards apply to them, you can reach out to us and contact the state agency. So, who has to meet the training standards for the program director when the school nutrition manager or other staff member carry out the duties of the director, but another individual holds the title of program director? Job duties and job titles may differ from district to district. If the school nutrition program director duties are performed by the program manager, then both the director and the manager would be responsible for meeting the training standards for the program directors. SFA should discuss unique situations with the state agency to determine the appropriate course of action. So please note that for both the hiring and training standards, those without a director title may still be required to meet higher standards, those for the directors, based on their roles and responsibilities within the program. The SFA director must ensure that the food service management company, if they have one, that those employees providing services for the school nutrition programs have the required annual training. Therefore, the SFA must require the FSMC to provide documentation showing the training hours and topics completed by those employees. Contracts that do not include this language will need to be amended to include additional language to reflect compliance with professional standards requirements. The SFA director may work with the food service management company to identify appropriate training resources, such as those listed on the professional standards website. Okay, so what are record keeping requirements? The SFA is responsible for documenting all staff training. Compliance with training requirements will be evaluated during the administrative review. Training trackers must be utilized and they must include the employee's name and position, such as are they director, are they program staff, etc. The key area, key topic, and training subject, and the completion date and length of the training. The SFA must maintain supporting documentation. This includes sign-in sheets, agendas, or other training materials that are utilized. And then the SFA must also maintain the training records for 3 years plus the current school year. So can excess training hours be applied over multiple school years? So yes, as stated in regulations 210.30E, at the discretion of the state agency, excess annual training hours may be applied to the school year directly preceding or directly following the date of the training. And this is intended to help provide flexibility while ensuring that SFA employees receive reasonable amounts of training each school year. Documentation to show completion of training must be available to the state agency for review. On this slide, you can see a screenshot of a link to USDA'S Professional Standards Training Tracker tool. This tool allows employees to be organized under managers or directors, and there's some different features with this tool. This is one of the ways that you can track. And then Louisiana Fit Kids also has a training tracker tool. So the Louisiana Department of Education has partnered with Pennington Biomedical Research Center, who's developed this alternate tool to use to document and manage training hours. One benefit of the Louisiana Fit Kids Tracker is that when we're having in-person trainings, those are in the database and they're simple to add. Alternative training tracking tools, such as the one from Louisiana Fit Kids, or if you develop one yourself, must keep track of the minimum fields listed in the USDA Professional Standards Training Tracker tool. So these fields would include items such as employee information, the training hours completed, the key areas of training topics, learning objectives, as listed in the professional standards learning objectives, and then also the topics with codes. So the professional standards training needs codes are broken down into 4 key areas. We have the 1000 level codes, which are nutrition. The 2000 area codes are related to program operations. Key area 3 or the 3000 level codes are related to administration, and the 4000 level codes are related to communications and marketing. So these must be associated with each of your training activities. Professional standards tracking and documentation has been a frequent finding on administrative reviews. So here's a list of items that you will need to have for the administrative review. First, you'll need to provide a current list of school nutrition staff personnel, as well as individual documentation showing the name of the staff person and the date they were hired, their title or position, a brief list of their core duties or responsibilities, their employment status. So are they full-time, part-time? Are they a substitute? And this is also including the average number of hours per week for part-time employees. And then the professional standards employee category position, such as are they the nutrition program director? Are they a manager? Are they other staff? And this will be in addition to the tracking tool you use to show training hours for each. Here's some additional resources provided by USDA. And next, we're going to actually dive right into the local wellness policy. If you have questions right now about professional standards, feel free to drop it in the chat box and I will answer questions at the end. But I'm going to go ahead and go into the wellness policy. I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. Wellness is an active process through which people become aware of and they make choices toward a more successful existence. And the local school wellness policy is a written document that guides a local educational agency's efforts to establish a school environment that promotes students' health, well-being, and ability to learn. The wellness policy must include a description of public involvement, public updates, leadership, and an evaluation plan. The 2004 Child Nutrition and WIC Reauthorization Act mandated that each educational agency receiving funds for child nutrition programs, and this would be the National School Lunch or School Breakfast programs from the United States Department of Ag, establish a local wellness policy. In 2010, the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act strengthened the requirements for the local school wellness policies and put more emphasis on policy implementation, periodic review, and updates. By addressing the poor nutritional habits and sedentary lifestyles of young people, effective school wellness policies can make the connection between health and academic success. School wellness policies promote academic success in the classroom by helping children become fit, healthy, and ready to learn. These policies can also help prevent childhood obesity, as well as serious diseases such as type 2 diabetes. After USDA finalized regulations in July of 2016, LEAs were required to develop a revised local wellness policy. Then, in June of 2017, LEAs were required to be in compliance with the requirements of the final rule. Each educational agency's wellness policy must meet the following minimum requirements. The wellness policy must include goals for nutrition education, physical activity, and other school-based activities that are designed to promote student wellness. They must include nutrition guidelines for all foods available during the school day, with the goals of promoting student health and reducing childhood obesity. Number 3, they must provide assurances that guidelines for reimbursable school meals are not less restrictive than the regulations issued by USDA. Number 4, they must allow parents, students, school administrators, child nutrition staff, school board, and the public to be involved in developing and implementing the wellness policy. And number 5, they must include ways of measuring the effectiveness of the wellness policies, including the designation of one or more persons at each school with responsibility for the wellness policy. Due to the childhood obesity epidemic and federal regulations, student health and wellness has become a concern of schools nationwide. An LEA must establish a wellness policy leader to ensure each school complies with the policy. Consequently, school nutrition directors are often asked to lead school wellness teams. As a school wellness team leader, you have a very important role in fostering an environment that is conducive to student health. So public involvement could include groups such as parents, students, school food authority representatives, PE teachers, school health professionals, people from the school board, school administrators, or the general public. The wellness policy must include specific and measurable goals for nutrition promotion, nutrition education, physical activity, and other school-based activities that promote wellness. Developing specific and measurable goals will let you know if and how you are meeting your policy objectives. 2 or more measurable goals are required for each area of the wellness policy. LEAs must review and consider evidence-based strategies when determining their goals for nutrition education, nutrition promotion, physical activity, and other school-based activities. Evidence-based strategies are those that have been evaluated, studied, and peer-reviewed. LEAs must review and consider evidence-based strategies when determining these goals. Examples of evidence-based strategies include smarter lunchroom techniques. These techniques include using creative names for fruits and vegetables, training staff to encourage students to select fruits and vegetables, placing unflavored milk in front of other milk choices, and bundling grab-and-go meals that include fruit and vegetable items. Other evidence-based strategies include the coordinated approach to child health and SPARK, and the links on this slide will give you more information on those. Next, let's discuss the local wellness policy requirements. Wellness policy requirements include a nutrition education component. This gives students the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make healthy eating habits. Education may include teaching students about healthy meal choices, reading nutrition facts labels, and identifying sources of added sugars and saturated fats. These can be accompanied by activities such as integrating nutrition into health education classes and integrating nutrition into core subject areas. The next wellness policy requirement is nutrition promotion. It's important to create a food environment that encourages healthy choices and participation in school meals. Activity ideas could include providing wellness newsletters to families with information designed to encourage families to promote healthy food consumption at home, posting nutrition signage around the school, and then offering contests, surveys, or taste testings around the school. It's important for kids to be physically active at school. The CDC recommends that children and adolescents receive 60 minutes or more each day of physical activity. Physical activity in schools can include PE, school sports, recess, activity breakfasts, or school events such as walks or runs. Other school-based wellness activities should be incorporated into the schools and not just in the cafeteria. Healthy learning opportunities could include staff wellness trainings to inspire them to serve as role models, family health and nutrition classes or events, as well as school gardens. The wellness policy must also include standards and nutrition guidelines for all foods and beverages sold to students on the school campus during the school day for both school meals and snacks. The term school campus means any location on the school campus that are accessible to students, and the term school day means the midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the school day. The wellness policy must include standards for all foods and beverages provided but not sold to students during the school day. So these are items such as items given during birthday parties or classroom parties. So these are provided but not sold. Decisions on this policy should be made at the local level. The wellness policy must include a district's policy for food and beverages marketing on the school campus during the school day. Only food and beverage items that meet Smart Snack standards may be advertised. Marketing includes oral, written, or graphic statements made for the purpose of promoting the sale of a food or beverage product. So examples include posters, flyers, vending machines, beverages, beverage cups, coolers, or trash cans. The wellness policy does not dictate food and beverages that can be marketed after the end of the school day, such as sporting events. LEAs must conduct an assessment of the local wellness policy at least once every 3 years, and the result of the assessment should be made public. The first triennial assessment was due on June 30th of 2020. The assessment needed to include the extent to which schools were in compliance with the local wellness policy and a description of the progress made in attaining the goals to the wellness policy. In Child Nutrition Response number 98, the nationwide waiver of local school wellness policy triennial assessments in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs came out earlier this year. If SFAs opted into this waiver based on the public health emergency, it provided a new triennial wellness assessment deadline of June 30th of 2022. If you're unsure if you opted into this waiver, please check with the state agency. LEAs must also update or modify the local school wellness policy as appropriate. The LEA must make the wellness policy and any updates to the policy available to the public each year. The LEA must also make the triennial assessment results and progress toward meeting goals outlined in the policy available to the public. Best practice is to share via the school's website, social media, newsletter, and by providing copies at back-to-school events. Wellness policy documentation must be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. This documentation includes the written local wellness policy, the documentation demonstrating compliance with community involvement, documentation of the triennial assessment, and documentation that demonstrates compliance with public notification. The LEA should have the following records available during an administrative review. Number 1, a copy of the district's current wellness policy. And please note that this is not waived by the waiver. This isn't waived by the waiver that we previously mentioned. Having a wellness policy is still required. Number 2, documentation of the district's distribution of the policy and the assessments to the public. Number 3, the most recent triennial assessment. Number 4, documentation of policy review and updates, including who was involved and how the public was notified of their option for involvement. Here's a list of wellness resources that are available, and they'll be available in the slide deck that we publish on Louisiana Fit Kids. And now we will take time for questions. We have about 3 minutes left. So if you have any questions, you can drop them into the chat box. Okay, so the first question that I have in is, do wellness requirements still apply for SFAs that are operating SSO this year? And the answer is yes. So if you've opted into the waiver, you do not have to complete a triennial assessment until June of 2022. But the wellness requirements do still apply, as they are part of the National School Lunch and Breakfast program. Are there any other questions? So the next question is, are SFAs expected to hold a wellness, I believe this is committee. So if we go back to, come back here. Maybe I passed it. I may have passed it. So the wellness policy needs to include like an outreach-based option for people to join. And so, yes, there does have to be, in essence, I don't know if I would call it a wellness committee, but it is a group of people that are working on the goals of the wellness policy, working toward the goals of the wellness policy, and then also assessing those, once the triennial assessment is due again. And I'm sorry that I can't find this slide. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank everyone so much for being here today. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully, you gained some valuable information about supply chain and then maybe also picked up something that you didn't know about professional standards or the wellness policy. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Sometimes this child nutrition programs at la.gov is a really great way to reach us. It'll get the message will get to someone who's available quickly. You can also call our office at 225-342-9661. And